Hi everybody, it's Michelle here at Solo in Canada, Musings from Midlife, and I thought I'd talk to you today about social courage. Social courage is huge for people who are solo. For me, my experience was that I didn't start off solo. I was dating my high school sweetheart and we went off to university, and then we hung out with tons of friends in our 20s, and all of them ended up getting married off, and we got married too, and away we went with a wonderful married life that lasted many, many years, and we had 3 kids. But I found myself at midlife, suddenly divorced. Wasn't something planned. Wasn't something I ever thought I'd be doing, is living out my midlife years on my own, but here we are. And you might be in that situation too, with whatever has happened to you in your life, that you find yourself unexpectedly solo at midlife, and maybe you are having some difficulties trying to put yourself out there. So this is what happened to me. I felt like I was, really floundering for feeling like I had a group, feeling like I had people to do stuff with, and I wasn't really sure what to do with all of the time that I used to spend with my spouse. So I thought that what I needed to do was I needed to find something to do. So the first thing I think I remember doing was signing up for meetup groups in my city. And Meetup is an organization that there are, groups from all around the world that have signed on to this meetup organization. So if you go into the internet and you look up Meetup and then type in the closest city to where you live, you will see all kinds of groups that people have created, and those are just private individuals who have an interest and want to invite anybody who shares that interest to join them. And usually what happens is when you go out, you sign up and you say you're coming, then usually there might be just a couple of dollars cost just to help the organizer with their fees for managing their group site. And that's what I did. I signed up for a meetup for my city, and I didn't go to some of the events that it was a social group. I didn't go to some of the events like the parties, because I just felt like that was maybe a little bit more than I felt comfortable doing. So I went to the smaller group things that maybe 15 people were going to. So I'd go to their breakfast or their dinners out at a restaurant, or they might be a small group with tickets that were all going to see a play, or going to see a live band at one of the bars in the area. And I would just show up. And there was even a euchre group that I signed up for, and I hadn't played euchre since I was really at university. I only played 1 year. I wasn't very good, but I just showed up. Somebody was offering euchre Sunday afternoons, and we would meet, and I had fun. I met some people. Now, for meetup, I would have to say that the vast majority of people that I met, even though I went to these meetups for quite a few years, didn't become long-term friends. However, a few of them did, and that's all you need, right? I'd say there's 3 of them that we are longtime friends now. We stopped only just running into each other at the meetups, and we exchanged phone numbers, and we started doing things outside of the meetup, and now we've been friends for over 10 years. So you'll probably find a couple of like-minded people that become your friend, and for the rest of them, they're just acquaintances. That's fine too. There's nothing wrong with acquaintances, and there's nothing wrong with going out and spending an evening with a bunch of other people who are interested in socializing and having it not turn into anything more than that. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I could never do that. I could never show up somewhere where I didn't know anybody. Well, I guess it's time to put your big girl pants on, because if you don't do that, you might find yourself very lonely in a number of years. So what I did, this is my strategy, maybe it'll work for you. What I did was, right before I went out, when I started to get all those little thoughts like, oh, I wish I hadn't committed to this tonight, and oh, I really don't feel like going, and and just feeling really kind of nervous about this. Well, what I said to myself was, pretend you're an extrovert. That's what you're going to do, Michelle. You're just going to go out, and for tonight, you're going to pretend that you're an extrovert. And that's what I would do. I would show up somewhere and I would think, now how would an extrovert walk into the room? And so I would gather up a little bit of courage and I would walk in and I would say, hi everybody, I'm Michelle. Nice to see everybody. This is going to be so much fun tonight. I wasn't pretending to be someone different all night long. It wasn't that. I wasn't being authentic. I was just building up a little bit of courage to break the ice as I walked through the door and had my first exchange with someone. So that's what I'd do. And then the other thing that I would do beyond just sort of playing the role of an extrovert to get myself through the first 10 minutes is that I would try to look at what I look like from somebody else's point of view. And what I mean by that is my body language. When you're looking around a group and you're trying to scan who you think you want to have a conversation with or who you think might be, someone like you, you're not going to be compelled to walk over and talk to the person who is sitting kind of slumped in the corner with their arms crossed in front of their body, almost in a protective stance, and a straight face. Especially since for some of us, and I'm speaking for me, I don't know about you, but over the years, as you age, your facial features, they tend to drop a little bit, so that even though you think you're just looking, just with no expression, it can turn out to be the corners of your mouth are pointing down and it can sort of look like a frown. So you can't walk around all day long thinking about that, but in those moments where you've just walked in to join a group of people and it's a social situation where you're feeling a little less courageous, think about your facial expression and make sure that you are looking approachable and fun. And then the other thing I would do is make sure I wasn't engaging in any negative conversation. When you're first trying to meet people, it is not the time for you to be talking about any of the challenges and maybe the not so nice stuff. It is not the time to start sharing what my mother used to call our dirty laundry with all these people in the room that you've never met before. Because even though they might be responding with empathy and having a conversation with you about it, when they move on and they have other conversations with the room that are about far more interesting and relevant things from their point of view to them, and that are interesting that they're going to learn from, they're going to remember those conversations and they might be less likely to come back and have some interactions with you. So that's what I would always try to remember too, is what kind of person am I bringing forward in terms of the presentation of myself on those nights when I'm showing up to a group where I know nobody. And then once I moved on beyond a meetup, I started to look at some of the events that were being advertised in my city, and I started to show up for those things. So that meant starting to either show up by myself or I needed to invite friends to come along with me. And I just had some problems with the wind here, so I'll see if I can work with it. So what I would do is I would quite often be the one that was sending out the text invites to friends to join me for something specific. So in the past, I used to think that it needed to be a reciprocal arrangement. So if I had invited somebody out 3 or 4 times and they came and we had a great time, and these are girlfriends of mine, and then they never invited me to join them for anything, I took that as a sign that they really weren't that interested. I've relocated here to get away from the wind, so hopefully there won't be anything being picked up on my mic. But the next thing I would like to talk about is taking that big step to actually invite someone that you've only met through these generic type of social situations, or somebody that you've been working side by side with in a class at the gym, or just you've run into them quite a few times. You've had lots of just very surface conversations, and now you think you would like to invite them for a coffee or see if they want to join you. A couple of them see if they want to join you to get tickets to something, and that is a really hard jump to go from just random running into each other and having pleasant conversation to actually making a plan to get together. I've done it plenty of times. It never gets easier. But just because it isn't easy doesn't mean that you don't do it. And I say this because if you want to have all kinds of wonderful people come into your world, and you want to have all kinds of wonderful experiences ahead of you that you didn't see coming, the best way to do that is to bring people into your life. And sometimes you just have to suck it up, be brave, and extend the invitation out. And I know that's hard to do. I struggle with it too, but I just know in the end it's good for me. So it's almost like one of those things where nobody wants to go to the dentist, but they go because they know that they're better off going than not going if they have a problem. Well, if your problem is that you would like to be more social and you would like to increase the relationships you have, then it's going to take you doing this. And one of the things I always keep in mind, because I heard this once, and I don't remember if it was an interview on the radio or a podcast or something. I wish I knew who said this so I could credit them. But they were a social scientist, and they were saying that they've done all kinds of studies. And in this one study, what they did was they had a whole bunch of subjects their task was to go and to invite someone that they kind of just, on the surface knew, invite them out, invite them to go do something, and then see what happened. And statistically, what they found was that 7 out of 10 times the other people said yes. So I try to keep that in mind, that yes, there is a chance that 30% of the time when I extend out that invite, they're going to shut me down and say no. But 70% of the time, they're actually going to accept. And so it's worth it in the end to keep that in mind and to just press forward and do it anyway. And I know that when they say no, there's that kind of weird, awkward moment where they know that you kind of were being brave and they said no because they just didn't see that they wanted to do this. So they had to suck up their own courage in a way in order to say no. And there is that kind of momentary, nobody knows what to say. So what? Get over it. Life is short. It's not like they're carrying it around. I'm pretty sure any of those people that... Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
I'm pretty sure that any of those people today don't even remember that I invited them out once and they said no. And even if they do, it's not like they're doing anything with that information. It's not that big a deal. And yet, all of the people that I invited who did say yes, we have had a blast doing all kinds of wonderful things since then. So just do it. You'll be glad you did. And I also know that I have a friend who met me through the meetup group that I started, and we're still friends today. And I didn't know anything about her when I started that group. She just joined on, but she still brings it up from time to time today about that it was a great thing for her when she joined, because she was not in a good place in her life and she really needed to find something where she could get out and meet people. And so you never know how you're having an impact on other people, because a lot of people will want to reach out and do things, but they just are too shy to do it. Think of it like you're providing an opportunity for them. So it's not always, you thinking about what can I get and oh, boo-hoo, I can't get it because I'm not brave enough to do it. Instead, maybe think about what I can do for somebody else. And sometimes we find the courage to do something for somebody else that we just don't think we deserve. And I don't know why we think like that, but sometimes we do. Something else I'd like to bring up when it comes to social courage too, and it's connected. The idea of reciprocity. I think I used to in the past think that relationships needed to be equitable and reciprocal, and that if they weren't reciprocal, that maybe they weren't really that good a friend. And I think I've kind of, grown past that now. And some people are just organizers and other people aren't. And I happen to be an organizer. And I also happen to be, a little lower in the self esteem. So if I invited people out and they came, great, we had a good time, it was wonderful. And then they'd always say, "This was so much fun, we should do it again." And if I organized something 3 or 4 times in a row and they came every time, I generally took that as a sign that they enjoyed my company. But if they never invited me or planned for us to do anything with them being the organizer, I would start to think, well, maybe they don't really want to be with me that much. Maybe they just don't know how to say no. Maybe they're kind of just like, oh, I don't really consider her too good a friend, but it's better than doing nothing. So that's what I used to think. I used to think that, and after a time, if there was no reciprocity, I would just drop inviting them. But now I've sort of grown in my attitude to that, and I've accepted the fact that maybe that's just something that I have in me in terms of a personality trait that people appreciate. Maybe it's one of the things that draws people to me is the fact that I get things going and I extend invitations and I make sure that the friendship doesn't drift too far and that too many months don't go by between our communication. And if they keep accepting your invite, if you are the one who is always extending the invite and they keep accepting, I think you need to just leave it there. Don't examine it too deeply. Don't put all of these meanings attached to it that you think it must mean when it might not mean that at all. Maybe it just means that they're super busy. Whatever their main activities are in their life, possibly work, possibly family, are really, taking over everything. And maybe they're thinking in their head that thank God for you being around to make sure you pull them into a more balanced life than they would have otherwise. So just I think that's best not to examine that too deeply. If they come, great. On the other hand, if I invite people out and I've done it 3 or 4 times and for the last 3 or 4 times they've said no, what I'll do is I'll just let them know. Okay, for now it looks like you're pretty busy with your life, and I'm happy for you, and I'm happy to get together with you at some point if you would like to give me a call, or you want to, you're going to something and you think it'd be something that you'd like me to join you with, then reach out and I'm happy to hear from you. And I leave it in their court, but I also let them know that I'm still open to our friendship. So I'm just not attaching all of this negative self-talk to the meaning of things anymore, because most of the time it's probably not that. And if this is happening to you, most of the time it's probably not that. So those are some of my tips when it comes to getting social courage in your life right now. If you are a solo, it takes more courage than if you're partnered up. Partnered people seem to have this built-in companion that they can take with them wherever they go, and traveling especially, because I do travel occasionally, but I do it by myself, and that's always a little harder to do. than if I had somebody with me. But I don't want to not travel. So, what am I going to do? Like, am I going to stop doing the things that I wish I had in my life just because I don't have a partner? Or am I going to just, get on with it and go and have those wonderful experiences? And that's what I hope you take with you today. And I hope if you're a very shy person that you get out there this week and you challenge yourself to do something that you really wanted to do, but you just haven't had the social courage to do. And you decide that you're not going to let one more week go by without you doing the things you want to do just because you're feeling a little awkward. If this happens to you and something works out really positive, let us know in the comments how it went, because the rest of us would love to hear. We'd love to cheer you on. We'd love to gather momentum with each other and give each other the courage to press on when we're feeling a little socially uncomfortable. All right, have a great day. This is Michelle at Solon, Canada, Musings from Midlife. Please remember to click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also click on the link below to check out my blog. Have a great day.